Okay, so welcome everyone to our first session for strategic level E3 segment for your exam. We are going to run the session over 2 hours, and what we are going to do today, because we didn't receive any questions from you which you would like to specifically target, we are going to cover some topics that we consider important based on the case study that you received. Can you confirm, Dominda, whether you have read the briefing information?
Yeah, I read the briefing.
Okay, great. Because it's the best way to apply it directly, so I will be running webinars in a way that as much as possible I will try to apply it and discuss with you the briefing information. So when you are on exam, you will be even more confident because you will memorize the case study facts and you will be able to apply them better. Because you know how this exam is structured, right?
Yeah.
But you will have 2 sections, and you will have the briefing information, plus you can have additional information. Is it only one exam that you are doing, or are you doing more levels for this?
P3 and E3. I go through F3 last time, so this time I'm doing P3 and E3.
Okay. Okay, so you are familiar with the process, which is great. Okay, so the topics we will cover today, we will start with the way how your modules are very structured in your study guide. So we will start with a rational model of strategic planning, because you have explained there are different approaches to strategic planning, but as you could see throughout the modules, usually the rational one is the approach that is used especially for analysis when we create strategy. So despite the fact that in real life strategies many times just adjusted to reality, sometimes ad hoc, managers will still use all the tools or most of the tools of a rational model to help them to evaluate and to analyze. So even if rational model will not be used as such in real life, managers will still use the tools that it gives in order to analyze and to help them to create the strategy. So based on the strategic planning, we are going to cover today mission, goals, and objectives. So we will start from the beginning, and managing stakeholders, what is important for you to know in terms of stakeholders, corporate social responsibility, because as you could see, there was quite a lot on corporate social responsibility in the case study facts. Ethics, which relates to the topic, and at the end we will start with strategic options and generating competitive strategies. And then in session 2 and 3 we will go a bit more into the specific strategies and strategy creation itself, and then implementation as well. If you will have any, or anybody who is listening, if you will have any questions that you would like to address in session 2 or 3, or you would like to focus on something that you are struggling with, on the screen you can see email address where you can send the questions to Justin. So feel free to send the questions and we will address them in the next session. The best is if you send them by Friday, so we can prepare and address for the next session whatever you would like to discuss, if you have anything specific that you would want to cover. Because obviously there are 15 chapters in total, so it's very hard to cover in 3 sessions everything. But we will cover really important parts that we feel that you will really need to understand. But again, if you would like to cover something else, or you want to focus on something, so feel free to send the questions to the email address. Or you can tell me at the end of the session if you will know whoever is attending. Welcome, Daniel. Can you hear me? Okay, so apparently I'm not sure whether Daniel's headset is working. Neil, can you hear me? When I'm asking you questions, you can even, if you cannot speak for some reason, you can write me a message into the chat, so I know that you can hear me well, just to confirm. So you can use chat during the session, or you can use Dominga. I don't know whether you can see, there is below the attendees, you can see like little icons if you want to raise hand or to say yes, there is a button there, or no, it's a cross there. Can you see that?
I can't see that because last session I saw that part. I can't see.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, so don't worry, but we are just two of us because I can't hear other participants, so so that's fine. We can interact. It's not a problem. We don't have any disruptions at the moment. It's more a case when we have more participants, so it's fine. Yeah. Okay, so let's start. So in terms of strategic planning, I may be asking you some questions because it's always the best when participants show how they understand the theory. Are you fine with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of strategic planning, obviously when we do strategic planning, it's not just strategy creation, but is in general creating the objectives, evaluate different policies, strategies, tactics, and defining actions that are needed to fulfill the specific objectives that the business will create. And part of the strategy is just part of the strategic planning, obviously. What did you understand the strategy is? If you would have to define what is the strategy, how did you understand what actually strategy is?
Strategy is the course of action to achieve a specific objective.
Yeah, it's written there. So basically, strategy is creating a kind of a plan that the organization will have in order to achieve what they want to achieve. And the strategic creation then goes to strategic plan and all the further down steps that has to be done, for example, like tactics and choosing different options for strategy and things like that. But it all starts from what the organization wants to achieve, why the organization exists. So if you talk about organization and why the organization exists, where would you go for information on that? Or how could we find information why the organization actually exists and what they try to achieve? What would you look at? Very good. Very good. So you would look at the mission statement. And actually, the steps there on the screen in the moment are part of the strategic analysis, which is part of the rational model. Do you remember what the rational approach or rational model to strategy creation is about? What is characteristic for it?
It's a step-by-step approach. The rational model is a step-by-step approach. First, you assign teams.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you're right, it's step-by-step. It's the process where you follow specific steps, where you're starting from analyzing, then you are creating strategic options, you are choosing specific options, and then there is a last part, strategy implementation. Usually, rational approach is coming from the management level, so from up to the bottom, to the employee level. What can be sometimes a problem with the rational model? And that is the main reason why there have been all these additional approaches which you have explained in chapter 1, for example, other than rational approach. What is the problem in reality of this particular approach?
It's time consuming and it's cost, and you need to assign teams.
Yes, so it can be time consuming, it can be costly, very good, but from especially from action point of view, from actually administering the strategy or actually putting it into place, what is the main problem there with this particular model?
The environment is changing, so it's really hard to based on past information to develop this strategy. So it's better to go for emergent strategy as whenever we face the problem. So some sort of.
Yeah, so it's not as reactive as some other types of the strategies. So you're right, it even takes time to put it in place properly. But also the main problem with this approach is many times that it's kind of disconnected from reality, in a sense that many times people that are creating this strategy are not people that necessarily will action it in real life. So many times doers of the strategy and creators are disconnecting, and it was the problem in the past with this approach, that many times strategy was created, was put on the shelf, and the real managers were not actually following it. And many times the reason was because they were not involved when it was created. So the bottom line employees, they were actually making action in reality or managing the business in reality, were not involved in strategy creation. It was coming from the management. So that can be downturn of this particular approach, but nevertheless, even despite that, it has really good tools, and that's why in most of the theories, whether you study CPA or CIMA qualification, for example, they all follow the same theory, because rational approach is giving us tools that can help us to analyze, for example, external, internal environment, and manager can use actually the theory that it was created with. So in real life, not necessarily it follow this way how we are explaining it, but it's a very good way in terms of understanding how you can analyze different parts of the market or environment, for example. So what we will be doing, actually, we will go a bit deeper into specific topics, and we are actually following the rational approach by doing so. Just so you know, so whatever theory is usually in a strategy creation or implementation books or any book about strategy will usually be tools they are actually from rational model. Okay, so when we talk about mission, as we already said, mission statement will be pretty much a starting point of creating strategy. And it will state in broader terms what is the purpose of the organization, why the organization exists. And can you think about what can be a problem many times with the mission statement of particular organizations when it doesn't serve the purpose it should serve?
Then it's hard to develop their brand if they are not doing the mission, something in the mission statement. So then it's hard to develop the brand. If the mission statement is not properly created, then the whole direction of the company can be a problem. That's correct, and the branding is part of it. But many times it's created and put on the website, and it's disconnected from the business day-to-day operations, or ignored in practice, which can be a problem. Many times even employees don't really know the mission statement of the organization where they work. I don't know in which area do you work. Do you work in industry or in accounting purely? I work for not-for-profit like Save the Children Australia, so like management accountant.
Okay, so do you know what is the mission statement of your organization?
Don't know.
You see, so many times it's just, most of the organizations will have that, but many times they actually don't communicate it to their employees, or nobody really knows what is it. It's put somewhere on the website, but people are not aware of it. And ideally, when you create mission statement, you should communicate it to employees, not only to management, but everybody should be aware what the organization tries to achieve. And especially you, let's say you are a management accountant, right? You should know what is the mission of your organization, because you are involved in decision making in some sense, definitely, as management accountant. So in real life, it shouldn't be disconnected from the practice.
And it doesn't matter that it's not for non-for-profit organization, because I'm sure you have a purpose why you exist and what you try to achieve as an organization. So when we go back to the case study now that we have for this particular exam, what is the mission statement of Y organization here?
Yeah. So delight customers by providing luxurious products which strengthen the brand.
Very good. So this is their mission statement: to delight customers by providing luxurious products which strengthen the brand. So what does it say to you when you look at the mission statement? What is important for this particular organization? Or what would you yeah?
They want to delight customers, so customer satisfaction.
Very good. So customer satisfaction will be important for them. What else?
Providing luxurious products mean the competitive advantage other than competitors, so they are going to give them the differentiate product, maybe the price difference or maybe the taste difference, because they are working on this chocolate and all business.
Yes, that's correct. But to me, luxurious mean more quality. Something that is luxurious is something that you perceive as a value as a customer. So something that is luxurious is usually something that is higher value than average product. So that's what they try to create. And how they try to create it, they want their brand to be recognized, right? So you already mentioned branding, for example, previously. So for this particular organization, branding is really important. They want their brand to be recognized. So from this mission statement, then we will be further analyzing today and even more in session 2 and 3, you will realize that where the main objectives or goal will kind of go within this organization. So this mission statement is actually giving you idea what the organization tries to achieve, and from here you can anticipate what strategies they will try to implement in terms of achieve this particular mission. Sorry, I just answered Daniel because he wrote. Yes, Daniel, you can participate by chatting. Sorry, I just saw it now because it was on the side. So if you want, anytime you want to say something, yeah, very good, you can just chat. Okay, so this is the mission statement. What is the next step when we have mission statement? Do you remember, Daniel, what would be the next step in terms of strategy creation? Sorry, Duminda, sorry. I got confused with names.
Translate to objectives by milestones. So you translate your mission into objectives?
Goals and objectives, very good. So the next step will be creating specific goals and objectives, which should be, what would you base the goals on? Or what would you take into account apart from the mission statement?
So the goals and objectives are SMART objectives, specifically measurable, attainable, and time bound. So you add more achievable things, more like measurable things to your goals and objective to achieve the mission.
Yeah, so there are characteristics that they have to be smart in terms of the specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. But what we need to take into consideration are key stakeholders. So when you are creating goals and objectives, you are looking not only at mission statement but at the main stakeholders and what they try to, what are their goals or what they want from this particular organization. So when creating goals and objectives, you need to look at the goals and objectives of particular key stakeholders, we call them. So not every stakeholder, but the key stakeholders for the business. And we will talk about stakeholders a bit later today. So in terms of the objectives, what do you need to take into consideration in terms of the relationship? What is the relationship between corporate level objectives and department objectives, for example, within the business?
Yeah, corporate level objectives, you decide which business you're going to tackle or be in which business, and in the department level, then you have the area, so you design that objective to achieve those goals.
Very good. So the main relationship, the corporate objectives supposedly are about the departmental. Whatever objectives further down you have, they have to flow from the main objectives within the business. So they shouldn't contradict each other as well. But what can be problems, especially when we talk, for example, you have there's another. It's on this slide actually. You have primary and secondary objectives. What can be, usually primary objectives are quite clear, and many times it will be creation of the profit or the growth of the organization mainly. But what can be a problem with secondary objectives when you go a level down?
Contradict with the primary objectives?
Usually they don't contradict with the primary.
Can't measurable sometimes?
Yeah, there can be issues. Well, when you create the objectives, they should satisfy specific requirements. But what I meant more is that secondary objectives may compete between each other. And then there is up to the managers that are creating strategy to make a decision on which are more important when we talk about secondary. Because there will be a conflict of interest many times between secondary objectives. You cannot achieve many times everything that the organization would like to achieve. So there needs to be a trade-off kind of between secondary objectives when creating the strategy. Let me have a look. Okay, so this was, here it is, conflicting objectives. I wasn't sure whether there was additional slides related to that. Okay, so when we talk about primary objective, usually you can have even secondary and departmental objectives, lower level down. You can have also, you can look at the objectives from a long-term or short-term point of view, and this can be another conflict that sometimes short-term objectives may be in conflict with the long-term. So, for example, if you want to create a sustainable business, and in the short run we like to have a high profit, then it can contradict each other, for example. So organization will need to make kind of trade-off also between short-term and long-term goals. And especially when creating the short-term goals for a specific year, to make sure that they're in line with the long-term objectives of the organization, what the organization wants to achieve in the long run. Not necessarily looking only at that particular year, for example. You have example there, for example, long-term goal can be research and development expenditure, which is needed for company development. However, in the short run, it will cut profits. So it contradicts short-term and long-term. And in this sense, if innovation, for example, is really important for the organization, they would go for long-term rather than short-term wins, for example. In terms of the financial goals, usually they relate to profitability, market growth, for example, dividend, shareholder values, and things like that. What is important is, especially nowadays, to consider also social responsibility objectives. Depends on the industry, but it's more and more important across many industries. We will talk about it now as well. So, in terms of our particular organization, we already mentioned what is on this slide, so I'm not going into a bit more detail here. When we talk about why organization, the organization that we have for this particular exam, what would you say is the primary objective or objectives for this business?
Maximize shareholder value.
Maximize shareholders' value.
Yeah.
Which is correct. And they even say they want to achieve it by improving margins to increase sales and reduce costs. So actually, you can even say increasing shareholder value by improving profit margins. And then the secondary objective would be actually the way how they are going to do it or how they want to do it is to increase sales and reducing costs to improve the margins. And there is one additional important objective that is mentioned, and it is this seasonalizing of sales. Do you remember what is the problem in their case, especially when we talk about chocolate and the products that they are offering?
There's a problem in the market. There's also a problem. I think the market's going down, but they are performing very well, I think.
Yeah, so in this particular business, demand fluctuates a lot based on season. So you know how, for example, during Easter you have more demand for chocolate, right? Depends on the seasonal sales. So what they really feel impact of it in off-season, and what they try to achieve is to smooth the demand in a sense that they want to create recognition of their brand in a sense that the customers will buy their product also when the season is low. And that's why they want to keep sustainable profit within the business. So that's one of the objectives that they want to achieve as well. They have, in terms of financial objectives, they had two objectives they were mentioned, which is increase profit and shareholder value, which is in line with what we just said previously. And they want to pay regular and consistent dividend each year. We know what is the situation, right? Their profit is not as it was expected, and their profit margins are decreasing, right? Do you think there can be a conflict here with the second financial objective in terms of regular and consistent dividend?
Yeah, it's definitely because the cash flow pressure is coming, because they have to pay the regular constant dividend, but the profit is going down.
Yes, so this particular, yeah, very good. So this particular second objective is in line with stakeholders' expectation in terms of shareholders, for example, which are one of the key stakeholders. However, based on the situation where they are at the moment, it can be an issue because their profit margins are decreasing, their profit is going down, and they have a, I don't know whether I remember correctly, this year or next year there is a loan that is due.
Yeah,
I think it was next year, right? So that's another issue in terms of the second objective. There is a conflict there as well, because it's not in line with paying dividends constantly if they have to repay large loans. So there can be a conflict there. Another objective that they are mentioned as strategic objectives. So these are objectives, they would be secondary as well. They go a little bit deeper into what we try to achieve. The main one, which we said was creating value and increasing profits, right? So this is a kind of, these objectives are kind of telling you how they want to achieve it. They want to increase range of their customers by product and market development, and we will talk about different strategies even more in the next session. And they want to focus on customer service in the sense that they want customers to have to have their products whenever they require and where they require them. That means that they want to cover as many channels as possible. So that's the way how they try to actually increase in sales and customer satisfaction, which was one of the main goals as well. They want to enhance customer experience through strong and effective customer relationship management. So that's another of their secondary objectives. And how they want to do it, they want to do it to focus on branding and marketing to encourage customer loyalty all year round. And this is secondary objective to deseasonalizing of sales, right? Because how they will be impacted less by seasons. If they have a loyal customers that will come no matter what the season is. And for example, if they need a little gift, they will don't buy another type of the product, but they will go back and buy some type of chocolate from there, which they consider as a good brand and luxurious product. So all these would be secondary objectives which support the primary objective of increasing shareholders' value and profit margins and deseasonalizing of sales. What in particular they plan to do? So this is again objectives level down. So how they want to increase the range of customers, or how they want to increase the amount of customers they want to cover in terms of the market development, especially. So they want to expand the online channel. They want to increase corporate clients and external retail stores and supermarkets, and decrease amount of high street stores. Why do you think they want to increase online channel, corporate clients, and decrease high street stores? Is it in line with their primary objective?
Because that's the cost low for online and the corporate clients, I think. Because the high street, they are making losses, as per the scenario, if I'm not mistaken, I think.
Yes, it is actually in line, you are correct. It is in line with a primary objective they have in terms of increasing shareholders' value and profit, because these channels have higher profit margins. And many of the high street stores have decreasing sales, and the profit margin is lower there comparing to, let's say, corporate clients. So that's why the focus would be on this specific segment of the market, which is in line. And as Daniel said correctly, there is increasing demand for online sales. And also it is in line with their objective of being accessible at any time, wherever the customer wants. So through online channel they can achieve it, because you can send it through post. Let's say the customers don't need to come to physical store if they don't want to. They can receive their package online. Okay. So do you remember I mentioned that many times organizations need to consider also environmental and corporate social responsibility objectives. Can you locate what is the objective of why in this particular area?
They want to sound because they want to be friendly.
Sorry, Daniel just wrote it. There's a spec that whatever you are writing down in sustainable farming, reducing packaging, that's the way how they actually administer, or how they action the social responsibility, environmental and social responsibility. But what is the objective there? If you want to define what is their objective in this area, these are the actions they are fulfilling that objective, which is correct. But what is the main objective?
They want to be a good corporate citizen.
So they have a statement in a case study that they try to carry out business with little damage to environment and operate in a fair manner with regard to all its stakeholders. So that would be environmental, the main environmental and corporate social responsibility objective in this particular case. And all the actions that Daniel, you are mentioning, it's correct, but this is how they actually try to achieve, for example, minimal damage to the environment and be responsible for our different stakeholders. Okay. So this is the main objective, and then based on that, we will discuss corporate social responsibility in a few minutes in more detail. But I just want to go back to stakeholders. If we talk about stakeholders, how would you understand what a stakeholder is from strategic point of view?
Stakeholders are who has the interest about the organization. So we concern about when we consider about the organization, we think about what are their power and interests. So if someone has more power, we consider as a key stakeholder.
Very good. So stakeholder in general, as you said correctly, are people who have interest in strategy of the organization. So they really care how the organization is doing, for example, because it may impact them or their customers, or they are somehow interested in this particular organization. And you can see on the screen now different groups of stakeholders and their possible interests. So let's go back to this particular case study or information that we have for the exam. Who would be stakeholders here if you would need to identify them? Who would be the main stakeholders in this particular business?
Shareholders.
Shareholders, and what would be their interest in this particular case? Or possible interest?
They want continuous dividend and the share price going up, so they want to increase their shareholder wealth.
And of course, profitability, because dividends come from profits, right? If the profits are better, then there is a larger amount to pay for dividends at the same time. So which is correct. So it will be one of the key stakeholders groups. Who else will be stakeholder in this particular case?
Managers and employers.
Very good.
Suppliers and customers. Bankers also, because they have loan, I think. Government.
And Daniel was saying that all of them. And so from the screen, we don't really know whether we have unions in this case. It's not mentioned, for example. Okay, so, but it's good to discuss because you may have a question on exam to discuss what are their needs. So, okay, so in this particular case, we know we have managers and employees. So, what would be the aim of the employees in this particular organization?
Because they want to secure a job, good environment to work, and especially the organization now the profit is going down. So if they see that they have a little doubt, or this organization is whether going to continue or collapse, so they want job security and the good the career development, so that sort of thing.
Yes, very good. In terms of bankers, it will be one of the big stakeholders here because of the loan, right? So obviously the bank interest will be a repayment of that loan that is going to be due very soon. What about suppliers?
Suppliers, they need the payments on time and continuous supply to the organization. So if the organization going very well, so they can supply, they can continue their business also.
Very good. And these particular suppliers, you know in which countries they are, right?
Indonesia and Africa, I think.
So they are in countries where they are not, especially when we talk about Africa, we don't know exactly which country in Africa, but they would really have high interest in business continuance, because obviously the business, this particular business will create jobs in their area. Because especially in Africa, there may be countries that will be dependent on suppliers, on customers like this particular organization. So they will have high interest in this company. They are kind of, you can assume that they may be dependent on, especially in terms of jobs, on this particular business. And they are even helping them. I remember there was it's one of the corporate social responsibility. I'm just trying to scroll it down on the other PC. They were creating a program for them where they got trained. So they are getting additional benefits from this particular business, where they can achieve themselves higher income. So they will be really interested in this business to be profitable, for example. Government, of course, is interested because you're paying taxes, the organization is paying taxes to them, and creating jobs, etc. Okay, so when we talk about stakeholders, one of the key exam focus points that you should focus on is to be able to assess level of power and influence on strategy decisions. So we should be able to identify stakeholders in this scenario. So we actually did it. What are the interests? But we should be able to assess the level of power and influence on strategy decisions. What would be a tool that you would use to do that?
Mendelow's matrix.
Yes, so you would use the power interest matrix created by Mendelov. So when we want to apply it in this particular case, because this is one of the knowledge that is a prerequisite for this particular level, they expect that you know this. So it may come up in a question. You may not necessarily need to draw it or explain, but it may be related into some of the questions. So when we try we just identify stakeholders we have here. And as you can see, this particular matrix is we are plotting stakeholders that you identified into different parts of the matrix based on the level of power and interest they have in this particular business. So who would you put from the stakeholders we just discussed into the bottom left? Low power and low interest.
The general public?
In general public would be an example, yeah. Customers. Yeah, it depends. Depends on them. Yes, it could be. If you have some really loyal customers, if you have, let's say, very, sometimes it depends on the case study part. If you would have a customer, we don't have information in this case, but if you would have a customer that is a really large customer, and let's say it would be a special store that sells some gifts, and the large proportion of their stock would be this particular chocolate from this company, then they would be, yeah, but you mean the shoppers? Yeah, in that case, yeah. But if you were talking about a customer that would purchase and then resell it, for example, if it would be some store where 80% of their stock would be from this particular company, then they would be, for example, in low power but high interest.
Yeah.
If these products are a large proportion of their sales, but however they're not large proportion of our business, we are analyzing, then they would be, for example, in this particular low power and high high interest section. So it all depends on the case study facts, and sometimes you may have been introduced additional facts, so be careful how you answer in case you have this type of question. So what would be, for example, what about share? If you have a minority shareholder, let's say you are a shareholder in this business and you own, I don't know, 100 stocks, it's not a large proportion of your income, you have a lot of other investment, where would you sit as a shareholder?
Maybe keep informed, high interest, low or high, keep informed or monitor. So that's bottom.
So in this particular case, actually would be monitor. Because if it's a low proportion of your overall portfolio that you hold as an investor, let's say you have all the many different more important shares for you that you hold in your portfolio, and you are such a small shareholder to this particular company that they don't really you're not really important shareholder, you're not majority shareholder, so then you would sit in monitor. If, for example, this particular investment is, I don't know, 80% of your retirement funds, and then definitely you would be keep informed because you would have high interest in this particular business. What about majority shareholders? Where they would sit? You have majority shareholder that owns 60% of the shares, for example.
Manage closely.
Manage closely, yeah. And especially if that would be large portion of their portfolio, let's say. So that would be managed closely. So you see, even shareholders, based on the case study facts that you may be given additional, may sit in different part of the matrix. Who would be in a section of low interest and high power?
That's government and tax office, regulatory authorities.
Very good. So this will be organization that this particular company has to follow, especially their rules and regulations. They have to be in line with them. However, themselves as organization are not important for the government as an organization as such. So that's why they have low interest. However, high power over the company because they have to follow their policies and law and things like that. Very good. And then which stakeholder would be in managed closely apart from majority shareholders?
If there's like the staff union, then if they are in high, so like that, and major customer, like let's say that they have corporate customer, they buy 60-70% of their goods, so maybe they should manage closely.
Well, also, but it has to be other way around as well, that this particular organization is important for the customer. So in that case, they would have also high interest in them. So yeah, that would be the case. It would need to manage closely. Okay, so you're right. Your examples were correct. What about, just in case you will have questions, to plot all the other. Daniel just wrote unique specialist within the company. Okay, so you would put if you would, but do we have someone like that in this particular company? So this is correct. If you would have a business. Okay, I'll give you an example where this is the truth, what you are saying, Daniel. Let's say you have a surgery and you have a highly skilled, I don't know, heart surgeon. And yeah, in that case, he would be in this particular field because he has a high power if he's the only one, let's say in Australia, who can do particular heart surgery. But he has also high interest in your business because he is one of the main surgeons there. So in that case, it would be in that managed closely as a specialist in some field. But if we go back to this case study, let's say which stakeholders we didn't plug into the matrix. What about suppliers?
That depends. Because if they from their supply, if they are supplying for number of organizations, then they are not high interest. But if 75% of their supply they are supplying to us, then yes, their interest is high and their power is also high. So then we need to manage closely.
Okay, so but in this particular case, do we have information whether we rely on these suppliers? Because Daniel is saying that they have low power, of course they will definitely have high interest, that there is no doubt in this case.
Yeah.
And do you think they are high power or low power?
Low power. Because organization develop those people and organization has control over those guys, I think.
Yeah, I think they have low power because organization train them, they help them to develop. So actually organization has quite a lot of power over them, it seems. So in that case, they would be low power, high interest, so keep informed in this particular case study. Anybody else we didn't plot? I'm just trying to think who we forgot. Bankers.
Keep satisfied.
Where would low interest, high power? They have high power from financial point of view, because it seems that the loan is going to be an issue for them. So definitely high power. And in terms of interest, well, they definitely have some interest, but if we think about bank and their profits, probably this particular business is not a huge customer for them, so they will be low interest in that sense. So keep satisfied. You definitely want to repay the loan on time, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, so who we didn't plot? Government. What about managers? Let's say directors of different divisions, for example.
Keep satisfied. No, not keep satisfied. Keep informed. Depend if they are shareholders also, then they are managed closely. But other than that, if they don't have much power, if they are not the key directors, then keep informed.
Yeah, but when I talk about executives and directors, they usually have power.
Yeah.
So, and we talk about, if you talk even higher CEO, for example. So where would you usually, because I'm specifically talking about managers and directors of the different divisions, where they would sit, manage closely, and they will be in that particular area. Okay, so we already decided where our stakeholders sit, and who would you take into consideration from our stakeholders that we identified in terms of the strategy creation in this particular case?
Shareholders and customers also we need to think, and the suppliers, bankers, yeah, everyone.
But who is the most important? The most important would be this particular group managed closely. When they need to be, in terms of their satisfaction, you don't worry, you need to take into consideration what suppliers you have, but when you are creating strategy, you need to look who you want to satisfy, which would be customers. For example, like you want to make sure that you are satisfying customers, but you need to make sure that you are in line with shareholders want, right? Because they are owners. Definitely who you would consult or take into consideration their objectives would be high-level executives. So they would be definitely involved in a strategy creation as well.
Yeah.
and especially if you would have any major customer, their needs would need to be considered as well. If your business would depend, we don't have information whether in this particular case we have any major customer that is important. But definitely you would take into consideration the demands and what customers want in terms of strategy creation. Very good. Do you have any question in terms of stakeholders?
No, I'm fine.
I think this should be fine. But I just wanted to revisit this topic because it was not covered, but it's a prerequisite of your knowledge, so it's important that you know how to apply. And we have information of stakeholders here. In terms of, Daniel's asking whether customers will be main players always. Like in general, when we create strategy, we need to definitely look into what customer demand is, what the customer wants, because any business will have customers, right? And at the end of the day, they are the final end that you want to satisfy. So you would definitely consider their needs when you are creating strategy. But what I wanted to emphasize, particularly the major customers that are important for your business, if they make majority of your sales, for example, then in particular, that customers have to be consulted, or they need have to. You don't need to consult them necessarily, but their needs have to be considered when you create strategy. But in general, when you create strategy, you do analysis of markets and customers and what their needs are. Because if you're not satisfying needs of the market, then you will not be successful as the business. So definitely you always have to consider customers when creating a strategy, who you want to satisfy. Well, you have a purpose, what you want to achieve, but the end of it is always somebody buying your products or services. Or somebody, if it's non-for-profit, somebody who you would like to serve as an organization. Did I answer your question, Daniel? Okay. Okay, so because there is quite a lot of information on social responsibility, I really want to have a look in this particular case in terms of social responsibility. It's like almost half a page on it, I think. So when we talk about corporate social responsibility, what does it represent, Juminda? How would you define it?
In social responsibility means that we are being good corporate citizens. So we are doing good things, ethical things.
Yeah, so it would incorporate to do business ethically. Very good. And what else? There is one side of corporate social responsibility. I'm sorry, my camera is falling down all the time. So there's one side, and what would be other side? So one side would be to be ethical and right to the public or to employees or to people that you are impacting, and the other side would be?
And the environment, protect the environment, no harm for the environment.
Very good. And Daniel's right, to minimize environmental impact of the action of the organization. And nowadays, even more and more organizations are moving towards being good corporate citizens because it's becoming more public. More organizations are reporting on it as well. Sometimes it's for a promotional point of view, not necessarily for the right purpose. Sometimes it's to avoid fines or negative publicity and things like that. But in general, there is a movement towards to be more socially responsible in general. And it relates to the topic of sustainability. So very often you have sustainability topic in this, even now even more in accounting. Do you recall what sustainability means?
Sustainability means like you keep going that like you achieve competitive advantage. How you maintain that? The sustainability mean the organization going concern. So without any problems, organization running their business.
Daniel is saying long-term reliance. If you talk about sustainability in general, not just your business to be sustainable, what do we mean by that? Yes, we want to be able to, as an organization, if you go level down, to be able to survive for long term. But what is important for sustainability from society point of view? Because it's really a common topic nowadays, and it can come on exam as well.
Brand image?
No, that wouldn't be related to sustainable. In terms of business surviving long term, yes, but to rely on natural resources for a long time. What do you mean by that, Daniel? You want to rely on natural resources ideally forever? We know, okay, so where it's coming from, just to understand what I think you mean. All resources, where sustainability comes from, and the topic itself. The problem in every economy is that all resources are limited. So, especially natural resources, as Daniel is mentioning, they will not go forever. Unfortunately, we have limited amount of land, we have limited amount of minerals and all the other resources. And if, as a businesses or as a societies in general, we don't act in a sustainable manner, or if we would be continuing the way we did business in the past, we would eventually use up our resources, because even at the moment, if you look at ecological footprint, for example, we are using resources more in higher speed than the nature can regenerate them. So we are using them up quicker than they regenerate naturally. So that's why more and more businesses have to look at the sustainability. And what sustainability means, it's yes, a survival of the business, for example, in general, but on a higher level, it's to be able to create businesses in a way that we still make profit as a business or whatever we want to achieve, but in a sense that we don't use all the resources for our future generations. So sustainability in that sense means that we don't use or we don't have negative impact not only on environment now, but on our future generations. So they will be able to sustain the level of growth, or they will have enough resources to continue. So that's what sustainability means in general. I mean, it's applicable to any type of the business. So that's why when you talk about sustainable practices, it will be anything to do with saving environment, be more productive, reducing usage of resources, use environmentally friendly type of let's say, manufacturing, for example, not to harm environment, in order for the resources to last as long as possible for the future generations. So that's what sustainability in general means, and it's part of corporate social responsibility issue in terms of strategy creation. And very closely related to sustainability is triple bottom line accounting, for example, and related to the also environmental management accounting. So when we talk about triple bottom line accounting, there are three areas that needs to be considered. And in general, in terms of sustainability as well, so it's environmental quality, social justice, and economic prosperity. So in terms of environmental quality, you would look at the things such as resource usage, level of waste, CO2 emissions, whether the way how you do business is increasing ecological footprint and things like that. In terms of social justice, and in general, if you would ever study sustainability, it has three aspects: environmental, social, and economic. and they all interrelate. And many times issues that you need to address relate to more than one area. And in terms of social justice, it's anything to do with people and how your business is impacting people. So it can be employees, your employees, or society in general. So it will be, for example, being good employer, what working conditions you give to your employees, whether you pay them reasonable amount, whether you are contributing to the community in which you operate, and things like that. In terms of economic prosperity, it has to do anything with economic impact on the society, or it can be within your business as well. So your position in the market, brand name would be under this area as well. What are your relationships with, for example, banks, shareholders, customers, suppliers, which have economic impact at the end as well. So when we talk about these three areas, and if you would want to answer the question, would you consider our particular business why to be socially responsible business, and explain why?
Yes, it's socially responsible. Why is trying to little damage to the environment possible, and to operate in a fair manner with regard to all stakeholders. So they are trying to use effective agricultural methods.
Yes. So
of cocoa, sustainable farming.
Very good. So they have a lot of things that they, in terms of sustainability. So I listed them on a slide, but what I want to do with you is let's categorize them. So we have environmental quality, social justice, and economic prosperity, right? And we have a lot of them, so I don't want to double up here. So the first one was they want to ensure that suppliers adhere to high ethical and environmental standards with regard to sources of materials. So this particular aim or target or action that they want to achieve, in which group of sustainability does it relate? Is it environmental quality, social justice, or economic prosperity?
Sorry, which one? I didn't hear.
So you know how we have three main groups?
Yeah.
We can even call them society, environment, and economic area. So where would this particular goal fit?
Society, high ethical and environmental standard with regard to social.
They can overlap sometimes. So this one will be society, but at the same time, environment, because we have environmental standard with regard to source of materials. Very good. So if you will need to categorize them, or you will have any question related to that, some of them relate to more than one area. Sustainable farming, and farmers are being trained in effective agricultural methods. Again, this is an example where you have an environment and social at the same time.
Yeah.
Industry approved certification program, where would you categorize them? And at the end of the day, economical as well as you're right.
That's like economic.
This is economical.
Yeah. Approved certification program. So it's like environment and economy.
And it's social in terms of the farmers here. Daniel is saying the same. So social because it's impacting farmers because they can achieve higher level of income. So that will be social as well. Ingredients, wise products contain only ingredients listed on the packaging. Where this one? That will be social justice, yeah. The packaging shows nutritional content and gives advice on recommended volumes of consumption. Same, Daniel, see, yeah, very good. So it's social as well. Why tries to ensure the packaging used for its product is recyclable and kept as minimal as possible?
Environment.
Environment, and one more here.
Economical.
Economical, very good. Environmentally friendly lighting has been introduced, which has reduced consumption of electricity and emission of carbon dioxide.
Environment
and
economic
impact as well. Annual independent health and safety audits in factory and retail outlets. Food and safety, workplace training. I could have separated these two, sorry. So when we talk about health and safety audits, social, very good. And training would be social, and it can be economical as well, if they, because it can impact if employees don't work safely, then it has economic impact definitely. So in this case, they are preventing any issues coming from the risk if the employees are not trained well. Workplace benefits such as life medical insurance, discounts, membership for local gym, competitive salaries, wages. So this is the way how they look after their employees. So this will definitely be social justice, and at the same time, economical, yes, right. Okay, so so these are all the social responsibility issues that are mentioned in the case study fact. So you can use them if you will get questions. I would assume you will get some questions because it's quite a lot mentioned there on that. So you can expect some type of the question addressing these issues. It depends how they. What you need to be careful, always address what the exam is asking you. So it's really important when you answer the question to relate to case study facts, but at the same time addressing exactly what they're asking. And because you have limited time, you don't want to be wasting time explaining something or restating case study facts, but rather applying them to the question and using facts just to support your answer. And when we talk about corporate social responsibility, really related is ethics. And when you talk about ethics, what does it mean ethics to you? When I say ethics, how would you define ethics?
Doing good things.
Doing things that are right, yeah, in general. And CIMA has an ethical code. I don't know, have you ever read the ethical code of CIMA? No. Okay, so we don't have that much time, so I'm not going into opening it up. This is quite a lot of pages and you have explanation, but we'll talk in quickly how does it apply to case study, for example. Because you can get some additional facts that will relate to that. It has relation to corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is wider, and ethics is part of it. So you have 5 main objectives or principles that CIMA has in their ethical code that every member should follow. So the first one is, I will just explain them very quickly because we are going to apply to, I will give you additional exam question that was in previous exam and you will need to apply it. So the first one is integrity. What does it mean to act in integrity? It means to be honest, straightforward in all business relationships. So it means for a management accountant not to provide or communicate any information, because especially management accountants, we have to report right to the management, and we are providing a lot of information on the business. So we need to make sure that information that we provide doesn't contain materially false or misleading statement. that it will not contain segment or information that was produced recklessly, or that it omits or obscures information required to be included in a specific report, for example. The second principle is objectivity. Objectivity means that you should not allow bias, conflict of interest, or undue diligence of other people to override your professional judgment as a management accountant. The next principle is, sorry, I am going a little bit quicker, but I just really want to cover as much as possible because we have limited only to 3 sessions. So if I'm going too quick, just tell me during that, because I want you to capture what I'm saying at the same time. Because especially all good done is saying. Especially it's a closed book, so you need to really, and this way it will refresh your memory, so when you have this question, you will be able to apply better. So another principle is to maintain professional competence and due care. So it means that you should be maintaining your professional knowledge and skills at the level that is required from a competent professional. And how you can do it, you need to be able to be you need to be able to have up-to-date knowledge in terms of legislation, techniques that are used in management accounting. You need to act diligently and in accordance with technical and professional standards. And you can do it through 2 ways. Firstly, what you are doing at the moment, you are acquiring professional competence, or in this case, a professional qualification. And then the second step will be to maintain your professional competence through what we call CPD, continuous professional development. So this is the way how you can keep professional competence, and at the same time you should perform your duties with due care based on your knowledge and skills. Next principle is confidentiality. Of course, as management accountant, you will come across a lot of information about the business, employees, or different stakeholders that are confidential. So you need to make sure that you are not disclosing such information to third parties without proper and specific authority, unless there is a legal or professional action against the business, or you have duty to disclose for specific reason, let's say court proceedings and things like that. So unless you have a particular reason, you shouldn't be disclosing any confidential information. And the next principle is professional behavior. Professional behavior means that you should comply with all relevant law and regulation and avoid any actions that will discredit your profession as management accountant. And so there are all 5 main principles. And what we are going to do now, we are going to apply them to a specific exam question that was in the past exam. I just want to ask, is it okay if we would have just 5 minutes break, because I just need to get some water? Is it okay with you? Because usually we have a break in the middle, but I don't want to take too long because I want to cover as much possible as possible. Is it okay for you just to have a quick 5 minutes break, and then we apply what I just went through to a case study? Yes. Or I can actually, if you want in between, I can put it up and you can have a look and read it. Okay, so we can do that as well. And I will be back in very short. I just get some water.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can.
Yes, okay, sorry. Okay, so I have some answers from Daniel. So what do you think would be the main principle that is violated here?
Integrity and professional behavior. So he's not honest. So he knows that fact, but he's not disclosing. And as a professional position like a CEO, he should more care about everything. So I think integrity and the professional behavior. So both are.
Yeah, that's correct. So, and which one would be the main one, and why here?
Integrity. It's not
Integrity, because we say that he shouldn't provide false and misleading statement, and he's communicating to journalists, right? Daniel is also claiming, and of course professional behavior. So Daniel is also claiming objectivity. What do you think about that? When we talk about objectivity in this sense means not to allow bias, conflict of interest, or undue influence of others to override professional and business judgment. Do you think, Daniel, that objectivity is one of the issues here?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. But mainly, I think integrity.
Yeah, integrity would be definitely the main one. Because objectivity, it's more issue here. The rather, like, objectivity would be that he would take, for example, opinion of someone else without verifying the data. But it means more that he has been in. I'm just trying to read it quickly because I don't remember all the details from the top of my head. It's more that he prepared in a hurry rather than him not being objective in that sense. So it depends how would you argue it.
Yeah.
Then I will say the integrity, yes. If it is bonus based on profit, then he's not objective in that sense. In that sense, it could be, but it's more misleading as well. So integrity is the main one. I will show you now, just so you know for the reference, the answer that was in the marking guide. So what was the way how CIMA would like you to answer it? So you have an example, a good example. So you know how the question was, advice giving you a reason. So you need to advise and you need to give your reasons at the same time, whether the situation is in conflict with CIMA's Code of Ethics. So the answer, this is kind of ideal answer for this particular question. That first you have reasons and then there is the advice. So for example, in this case, the reason is it contains materially false or misleading statements, and you are stating the case study facts. So on exam, we just discussed it quickly, but on exam, when you are answering this question, for example, you need to really explain why integrity is an issue. So for example, you know how part of the integrity issue was not providing false and misleading statement, right? So you would state that he's providing and where exactly, and you see you are using case study facts. So for example, in this case, CEO has presented very optimistic forecast, but this could be misleading if the government claims for damages against the company. So you are using case study facts showing where it was false or misleading. The second one, integrity has an issue that you cannot omit information where such an omission would be misleading. And again, you have examples from this particular situation where CEO did not mention the claim to the analyzing journalist, and this particular omission is misleading because it prevents his audience from being aware that the profits may be materially lower than the figure he was giving to them. So this is the best way to answer it, because you are using definition what the integrity is, and at the same time you're using case study facts to support your answer. So this is the perfect way to answer in general questions on exam. And then because you have been asked, you also need to be careful that you need to advise and give reasons. This is just giving the reason why integrity is an issue here, and then advise. The CEO forecast and presentation demonstrate the characteristics of communications which conflict with the principle of integrity. So this is your advice where you think this particular CEO is violating the code of conduct. It's just like kind of summary, that CEO has not been honest and he's dealing with the analysts and journalists, and that's why situation one represents conflict with the principle of integrity. So you're kind of analyzing it first, and then you are giving your advice or conclusion. So this is the perfect way to answer it. This is a good way for preparation for exam, so you know how to actually answer on exam. This is from the marking guide from a real exam, and a real past exam. So this is a good way for you to understand what is expecting. Same scenario, second situation, and again you have to advise the same. So I'll just let you to read it quickly and we discuss it.
Okay, I think. Because
okay, so try to answer me now in a way how you would put it down on exam. It's a good practice for you. How would you answer it on exam? You need to, that's a conclusion that you said you think there is no conflict, but try to analyze it in a way that there is there is one of the principles that you would be considering whether it's a breach or not, or violated. And you should explain which one and why, stating case study facts, why this could be an issue, and then explaining why it's not or it is, it doesn't matter, and then making conclusion. So how would you answer it? Let's say you're writing now on exam, what would you write?
The particular code relating to this scenario is the confidentiality part. As per the guide, we can't give the confidential information to a third party or outside world, but the code says if that request by law or the authority, then we have right to give that information. So that's
very good. Very good. So that's a good introduction to the principle that you are considering. And then, yeah, continue. So I didn't want to disturb you, just to say that you're on the right track, yeah?
Yeah. However, the government requesting, government has got a court order to get these documents which relate to, said, export trade, which are the confidential statements, but since that's a regulatory requirement, so ESET should give that information to the government. Then it's not conflict with CIMA ethics.
Okay, so and then what would be your advice? Like if you would have to write a conclusion, how would you just write a conclusion based on the analysis above, or just to give a final advice? So you are addressing all the parts of the question.
Yeah, based on the analysis above. Even though courts say the confidential information can't give to third party, but if there's a legal requirement, we have to give that information.
Very good. I will just show you the marking guide answer, which is very similar to what you did actually. So you explain what the confidentiality principle is. And Daniel, yes, you're right. So he was writing. Daniel was writing the confidentiality issue from the beginning. So yes, you're right, Daniel. I just wanted to mean that to explain how he would write it on the exam, just as a practice, because this is a good practice for the exam. So yes, you answered correctly. That you explain the principle. And then you stated the information from the case study facts. So you supported your answer with the case study facts, and then you gave the advice. So many times with this type of exams, it's very important the way how you write your answers. So you need to have logical order and explain what is it about. In this case, for example, you are stating the principle, and then you are using case study facts to support your answer, and then you are providing conclusion. So examiner, whoever is marking your paper, will see your logical thinking, and you're making logical conclusions based on the case study facts application that you are applying. So it's not necessarily rewriting anything, but you are applying them, how they apply in this particular scenario, which is the best way to address any question you will have. Do you have any questions here in terms of the code?
No, I'm fine.
No, okay, very good. Okay, so now I would like to just to go a little bit into strategy itself today. I just would like to start with strategic options, and particularly generic strategies, and just to have a discussion what they are and how do they apply in this particular case study that we are going to have on exam. So again, it's part of the rational approach to strategy. When we have to choose a specific strategic choice, there are three categories of strategies, which is competitive strategy, product market strategy, and institutional strategy. So today we are just going briefly to discuss generic competitive strategy. So we are going to be in this area only today. And there are three main generic competitive strategies. So whenever you will have a question related to generic competitive strategies, it should ring your bell, because it can be confusing which theory is where, right? But every time you have generic competitive strategy, you should know it's one of these three types of strategies: cost leadership, differentiation, focus, or focus can be focusing to differentiation or cost leadership at the same time. So what is the main theory behind the generic competitive strategies? What's Porter trying to say when he created the strategy in terms of
why customers buy your good? So what is the competitive advantage over your competitors? So reason for buying your goods by customers, whether it's the cost or the differentiation.
Yeah, very good. So he believes that organizations can achieve competitive advantage comparing to competitors either through cost leadership or through differentiation mainly. So these two main strategies. And a focus, of course, can be combination. So in terms of cost leadership, what is characteristic for cost leadership? When the organization is trying to achieve, or when would you assume that the organization is following this particular strategy? When would you assume, in which scenarios, for example, that organization is trying to, is following cost leadership generic strategy?
When they have the economies of scale and they have the capacity to do that, because their cost is lower than competitors, and they can create an entry barrier for the other competitors by lowering their cost.
Okay, that's correct. Daniel is saying lowest prices. Do you agree with his statement?
Not lower price, lower cost, I think.
Very good. Daniel, I need to emphasize lowest cost. Daniel, it doesn't mean if the organization is following cost leadership strategy that they will necessarily pass that cost savings to the customers. Sometimes they can have really low cost or lower than competitors, and their prices may be at the same level. If they still can sell the products and don't have any issue, especially for example if there is not enough and there is high demand, not necessarily they have to have the lowest prices. Sometimes they keep the profit margins in the business, let's say for example for research and development. So not necessarily it will flow to the lowest prices. They will not be competitive. They will be competitive if, for example, they can have the same price as other competitors. So it doesn't mean they will not sell their products, but the advantage comparing to their competitors is that they produce at a lower cost than them. So in that case, they have extra money that they can use for the future. Let's say in research and development on innovation. And in that case, they can be ahead of competition. So that means there's still competitive advantage, even if the price would be at the same level. Okay, so really be careful on exam, Daniel. This is about cost leadership. Not necessarily it will flow into the lowest prices. If they can afford it, if it's necessary for them to have enough market share to go lower, of course, it could be same. They will have lower prices as well, but not necessarily this is the case. What about differentiation? When the organization is following this particular strategy?
When the market, when they have high competition, then if they can't go for the cost leadership approach, then they add more things to the good, or they change the product in different way. And other than that, when the life cycle of the good is come to end, when they need to create another start point, so they create additions. As example, earlier stages, the car come up with airbags. They introduce airbags. So then that's a differentiation earlier. Now it's like a common thing.
Unique features that Daniel is saying as well. So yes, where this logic comes from, you're right. So where the logic comes from in terms of differentiation is, if we cannot produce at the lowest cost possible, then how are we going to attract customers as a business? We need to provide them some kind of value, right? Something that we are a little bit better at compared to competitors, something that will attract them to buy from us rather than from competitors. And in this particular case, it can be two things that you mentioned. It can be some unique features, as Daniel is saying. Sometimes it can be even customer service. You may have a same product, but if your customer service is better, then customers will come to you rather than to your competitor. It will create competitive advantage for you. And you may have same level of product, same quality, for example. Sometimes it's the same quality, better quality of your product, which will be differentiation for you. Sometimes it can be a brand image. If your image is, for example, perceived, or if your brand is perceived as better, then customers will purchase from you. And sometimes because it's perceived value, brand can be perceived value, sometimes they're willing to pay for it extra money. Good example is, for example, sport clothing, right? If you compare Adidas to some brand that is not known, especially people that are professionals in sport and they care about quality of their products and about the brands that they use, they will purchase from Adidas rather than some unknown brand. And sometimes quality can be the same, but the differentiation is the brand name, and they are willing to pay more for that as well. So that would be an example of differentiation strategy, for example. And what about focus? How does focus fit generate competitive strategies?
After deciding maybe the cost leadership or differentiation, then you decide which segment you're going to do your business. It's a narrow one, a broad one, or specific country or the region. So that's the area you're going to do your business.
Yeah, and Daniel, very good. So, and Daniel says same, specific market, smaller focus. Yeah, so you are focusing, you are correct, Dumina. So you're focusing on or geographical market, or it can be a specific product, or it can be group of customers. Let's say you can be focused only, if you talk about fashion, for example, you can be focused only on female fashion or fashion for a pregnant women, let's say, or children or things like that. So that's a focus strategy. And within the focus, you can still follow or cost leadership or differentiation. It's the way how you actually compete. So you cannot be focusing on a small part of the market, but at the same time follow cost leadership or differentiation. Depends on the situation, how the organization tries to compete. Focus and cost leadership. Example, I'm just trying to think real life. That would be, for example, you are focusing on, let's say, female clothing, female fashion. That's a focus. You're focusing on just one part of the market. So you are a manufacturer of clothing, let's say, and you are just particularly focusing on female fashion or even pregnant women, doesn't matter which example I use. And at the same time, you can be the most cost-efficient competitor. So you can still be you can still have the lowest cost on the market, but at the same time being focusing on particular group of customers, for example. Or you can still be the lowest cost producer and focus on specific geographic market. Let's say you can focus only on New South Wales, if you talk about Australia, for example. So is it clear, Daniel? So if you not really. Okay, so so focus in general means you will be focusing on specific market, as you said, right? So it can be geographical market, or it can be, as I said, type of the customer, for example, females. So if you create fashion, like fashion clothing, it will be females only that you are providing for. So this is, for example, customer market or geographical market. So you're focusing on specific area, but at the same time, you can follow cost leadership. That means that you are the lowest cost producer. So that means in that specific geographic area, let's say in New South Wales, no one else is producing cheaper than you. Because you may have some very good production, you can use a cheap labor somewhere or any other cost advantage you may have. Or, for example, if you talk about female fashion, you still can be the lowest cost producer at the same time. Let's say you are creating your own fabrics and it's very cheap for you and things like that. So you can have both at the same time. You don't see how focus helps us to become cost leadership. I'm not saying that focus will achieve you cost leadership. You can have a cost leadership and a focus on specific market. That's what I'm trying to say. It's the other way around. Yeah, of course, cost leadership will come normally from economies of scale, ideally, but not always. You can still produce cheaply and not produce huge amounts. Okay. Okay, so is it good now, Daniel, from what I explained? Okay. Dominga, do you have any question here?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So let's go back to our case study that we have for exam. If you would, because we have 4 minutes to finish, if you would need to judge what generic competitive strategy our organization is following, which one would you choose?
I think the differentiation. I think differentiation.
Daniel is saying the same. And how would you argue that? Why differentiation?
I saw somewhere.
What do you try to achieve?
Delight customers.
If we go back to the mission, what was the mission of the organization?
To delight customers, provide luxurious products.
Luxurious products. This is already indicating to you that they want to differentiate. They want to offer something that is perceived higher value than average. And they are mentioning even branding, importance of branding throughout the case study as well. So that will also indicate that it's differentiation. We don't have any, luxury never comes with cost leadership. That's what Daniel is saying. Yeah, that would be extremely hard to achieve luxury and cost leadership. Unless you're extremely skilled, but normally it contradicts each other. You cannot, and actually that's what important is pointing out. You cannot provide a luxury product and try to be the cheapest one at the same time. It kind of contradicts each other. And that's why it was also in the theory, if I just bring one more slide here, that if you try to, you can be stuck somewhere in the middle if you don't choose one of these strategies, what actually you try to achieve. So for example, here we have strategies that are destined to ultimate failure. Are the strategies where you want to, this is the other way around, where you have a low added value and high price, of course. But at the same time, it's very hard to achieve a low price and high added value. It really contradicts each other, and that's what Porter is trying to emphasize, that you should really try to choose an organization which way you are going. Either you want cost leadership or differentiation. Anything, if you want to try to combine them, you can get stuck as organization or you can fail, especially if your customers are not perceiving your product as a high value. So it can be, if the generic strategy is not defined properly, it can even lead business to the failure completely, because they are trying to achieve things that are unachievable together. So very good comment, Daniel. Definitely luxury, it would be extremely hard to achieve with the cost leadership. unless you would have something amazing in terms of technology. But it usually cost money at the same time. Why we would not say that it's focus differentiation in this particular case? Just to wrap it up. Why you wouldn't define it as a focus differentiation?
Sorry, tell me again.
You know how you can have focus and differentiation strategy at the same time. Yeah. Why in this particular case we would not have focus at the same time?
Because they are now moving to like online, and so they have very wide customer range rather than focusing to a specific market. So it's like global.
Very good. So, and Daniel is saying that no particular market niche was mentioned in scenario. So we don't have any indication that they are focusing on specific channel. They are focusing on the ones that have higher profit margins, of course, because of their main goal to increase shareholder value and profit. But we don't have any indication in the case study fact that they are concentrating on particular market or particular customer group or particular channel and things like that. Daniel is saying they're actually unfocusing. I don't know what I mean by that, but they are widening their range of channels because they want to increase market share and profit. It's expanding. This is, yeah, market development. Okay, so this was very interesting. I like the word unfocusing. Okay, so it's already 8:31. Unfortunately, I have to finish for today because of the time I need to catch the ferry. But it was very nice working with you today, Dominda, and I think it's very good if you, and Daniel as well. I'm sorry. It's a shame that you cannot speak. It's very good you see this way you can test your knowledge and the application as well. And I try to really stick to the case study that you have. And next session we will go further into details in terms of different additional strategies and analysis. But if you have anything in particular that you would like to address, just send a question to the email address I mentioned at the beginning. You should have a recording available, so you should be able to go back and have a look what was the email address again. And you can address the questions that you want to discuss. The perfect would be if you would send it until Friday. So when I'm preparing the slides, I can concentrate on whatever you wanted to ask at the same time. So thank you very much for tonight. It was a pleasure working with you both. Thank you, Neil. Hopefully next. You can hear me because I didn't know. Sorry, I was addressing you previously, and I would have asked you some questions.
No. Later only I figured it out how to wire it up.
Okay, because I tried to talk to you and you were not responding. So I haven't realized that you can speak. So hopefully next week you can contribute together with other participants. So thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the week, and hopefully we will meet together next week here. Thank you.
Thank you.